I could have gone to University of Florida, which is a wonderful agriculture school, and I could have also gone to, I did go to Auburn University, but I wasn't into the horticulture program because I had no idea. I was a psychology major that eventually turned into a physical education major, so I kind of transitioned over the 2 years. After 2 years at Auburn, it was very, very restrictive. You had to like take a test on the rules for women. There's like a book and an Associated Women's Students, and you had to take a test on these rules. There was no rules for men, nothing. The men could do whatever, you know. And so this was like 1968, 69, 70. It was Kent State, the invasion of Cambodia, you know, so there was a lot of political things going on, and I felt very discontent, you know, with the whole thing. So my dad told me that I could take a summer study tour to Hawaii for 6 weeks, and because I'd kind of gotten involved in some of these protests against women's rights, and I got sentenced to 4 days and 4 nights in my dorm room. So I said, this is ridiculous. So I said, sure, I'll take the trip to Hawaii. I went to Maui and ended up spending the weekend at McKenna Beach, and it was the 4th of July, and it completely changed my life. I said, I can't go back to Auburn, you know. So I ended up packing up all of my 14 pairs of shoes, all my tennis rackets, my tennis clothes, and sending them back to my parents and saying, I'm not going back. And I was 19 at the time, and I met a fellow that had been working at William Kirsch Orchids in Palolo Valley. And he said, well, I just left there, maybe they'll hire you on. And so I went up there and met Mr. Kirsch, the original, you know, or one of the original orchid growers, I believe. And he said, well, we don't really need anybody, but okay, you know. And I started out pulling weeds, and then I got promoted to washing the pots, the clay pots, and then I eventually was able to start transplanting the little community pots out into the little pots, transplanting the orchids. And I went, wow, this is so cool. I love it. You can actually grow things, you know. I have to tell you the truth, in high school and all, I had no love for landscaping or planting or growing things at all. It just, you know, it didn't work for me. My mother was always out in the yard and gardening and stuff like that, but I was never interested in it at all. But after working at that orchid nursery, it kind of just lit a little spark in me. So everybody kept telling me how wonderful the Big Island was. I really was on my way to India to find my guru because I was 19. And I ended up coming over to the Big Island and went, whoa, look at this. Look how things grow. This is incredible. And I pretty much decided I want to be a farmer. So my parents helped me out, and I got a 11-acre piece of land in Kapoho. And I don't know if you know Kapoho, but it's rugged, you know, it's a rock out there. And we were growing guavas and citrus, and mostly guavas and citrus, I believe, out there. And I knew we needed some money, and so I went to the state ag program, the ag loan program, and said I'd like to borrow some money from my farm in Kapoho. And they said, well, you got to have a degree in ag, and you need to be in the Young Farmers. So you heard this story, right? Okay, so I said, okay, so I signed up for the community college ag program, the 2-year ag program. And I was still nursing my 5-month-old baby at the time. So I'd take her to class with me for a while until she started crawling across the classroom floor, and I thought, this isn't good. So I saw a notice for the Young Farmers meeting. I go, okay, that's what they told me. I got to be in the Young Farmers. So I went to the Young Farmers to join, and they elected me president of the chapter. So we went to the first meeting. Norman Bozzona, who's a retired extension agent, he was our teacher and our advisor at the time for the Young Farmers. And he and this other fellow and I and my 5-month-old baby went to Molokai for the Young Farmers Convention, the state convention. And I'll never forget the look on the face of these guys that met us at the airport, because there's just a little airplanes in, right? Because this was back in 72, I guess it was, 73, 74, maybe. And they were just so surprised that, number one, I was a haole woman, number two, I was young, and number three, I had a baby with me. And it turned out the Young Farmers at the time were pretty much guys in their over 60s, you know, all these farmers, and they didn't even want to talk to me. They were so shocked that I would show up at their state meeting. And then I started, you know, raising my hand and participating in the discussion, and they're going, what can we do with all the off-grades? I'm going, compost them! They thought I was nuts. And I have to say, there was one fellow that came over to me and to our little group from Hilo and befriended us. And that was Leland Nishik from Kauai Nursery and Landscaping. And to this day, we are still very good old friends because he's the only person that would even talk to us. So, but eventually the guys got used to me, and 2 years later they elected me their state president of the Young Farmers. So I was the president of Hawaii Young Farmers for several years, and then I was also their star farmer 1 year. And that's when we would go to California. We'd do a reciprocal with the California Young Farmers. The earthquake of '75 knocked our water tank over in Kapoho. And I was trying to finish my degree and run the Young Farmers. So we ended up moving into Hilo so I could finish my degree, and ended up selling the place in Kapoho. And that's when we bought a farm up in, a piece of land, raw land, up in Waikeuka, right above Hilo. And I ended up doing nursery there for, I was up there for probably 34 years, I think. I really had wanted to farm, but when I was taking one of my ag classes, and we'd gone, I think, to the mall or something for a field trip, and I said, look at these plants, they're awful, And they said, well, you should do something. So I was having lunch at Rosie's Boathouse one day, and I told the waiter, I said, you really need to do something about the plants. You need some plants in here. He goes, oh, well, let me tell the manager. The manager comes over, and I said, you need some plants in here. He goes, great, bring them in. I went, oh, okay. So I went out and got a bunch of plants and hung them in there, and of course 2 weeks later there was no light in there. It was Rosie's Boathouse, so they had those little porthole windows, so there was no light. And I was like, oh my gosh, they're all going downhill, so now what am I going to do? So anyhow, that was the beginning of my plant rental business, which I actually still do to this day. In the meantime, I wanted to farm. I really just wanted to farm, but I kind of got sidetracked doing the retail thing. So at my property in town, I had fruit trees. I got interested in tropical fruits. Ended up traveling with the Hawaii Ag Leadership Foundation to Japan, China, Thailand, and then I went on to Singapore. And then went up to Malaysia and started investigating tropical fruits. And my friend Susie Hamilton from Planet Hawaii, she and I brought back some of the original plant stock for tropical fruits and set up. And that's how the rambutan industry was actually started. And they're the largest growers of rambutan in the state, Planet Hawaii, Hula Brothers. But that all evolved from the original trip over there. And then went to Australia the following year to look at more. So I've always been involved in the tropical fruit industry, planted quite a few of them up at my property up there. Did the nursery, the plant rental, tried to do cut flowers for a while, the pink gingers and things like that. Just kind of looking for the right crop. Ended up meeting Michael. He was going to school at College of Ag. And we ended up sitting there after I think we started the Hawaii Tropical Flowers Association. And so we ended up sitting there after the meetings talking and realizing that we really got along well. So we said, well, let's make a field trip to Bali to go look at tropical fruits. So we had a whole group of people going to go, and it ended up, everybody backed out at the last minute, just the two of us went. And it turned out we traveled really well together. And so here we are 23 years later, still traveling and still looking for tropical fruits. And since then we've gone to a number of conferences in Thailand and Bali, brought speakers in from there. We started the Tropical Fruit Growers Association about 22 years ago also, about the same time. And kind of tried to help bring that on as a new industry. Then when the sugar company started going out, we said, oh, we would love, Mike had a 20-acre farm in Waikouik, and I had my 6.5 acres. And we said, oh, we'd love some of that real soil. We had soil up there, but it was on rolling pohoihoi. So sometimes there would be this much soil and sometimes this much. So it was, and it was very wet, up there. So we said, oh, we'd love to get some of this Hamakua land, So we started talking first we started talking to some of the people that had the Hamakua sugar land. And we were going to get a piece about 24 miles out, which was a little far for us. And then when Mauna Kea sugar started going out, we asked them to lease these parcels here. So we kind of took a chance because we leased them and didn't buy an option to buy, and ended up putting the infrastructure on that, the equipment shed, you know, the reservoir. And everybody goes, "Oh wow, you guys are putting this money into lease land." And go, "No, we're going to buy it. We're going to buy it." So when Doc Byers decided to sell all the land, we had a realtor go in and make him an offer, and we ended up buying 3 of these pieces, and then the 4th one eventually. So I have to admit that John Cross and Dick Armstrong from Brewer were really great. They had given us their word that we would be able to buy it when it came to time, and they held true to that. So I give them credit for that. So then we were able to purchase it. So that's helped a lot. And then, as I was telling you earlier, Dr. Clement came along and said, why not grow some of these peach palms? And so we started on that and ended up planting the Heart of Palm. So Michael eventually sold his place in town, and then I sold my place in town 2 years ago. So we're pretty much here on the farm now, in the middle of it all. We're trying all different things, like trying the yuzu was just kind of an off-the-wall thing. Let's plant some yuzu. Why not? It's an interesting fruit, and we sold every single fruit this year. Well, whatever we didn't eat ourselves. We always save some for ourselves because we figured that's the whole thing. Why grow something if you can't eat it yourself, or if you don't want to eat it? So that's why we've just planted all these varieties of tropical fruits, as well as the palm heart, and the breadfruit, the avocados. We kind of did avocados and lemons, limes, because they went well with the palm heart as well. So I think our next step is we're finding that there are a lot of off crates, and there's a lot of times when you can't quite get the marketing to link up with the production. You know, all of a sudden you'll be in really heavy production. We may end up doing some value-added products. So we're kind of working on that. Some things with the palm heart, and maybe some things with the lemons and things like that. So we're looking at value-added. We're kind of wondering, do we really want more work? I'm going to be 60 next week. So at this point I'm thinking, okay, how much more work do we want to do? But I figure as long as it's fun and we're still having fun at it, we'll just still keep taking it on. Trying not to get the stress level up high, just trying to keep things in a good balance so that, you know, we're enjoying it and we're happy with what we have. But I have to say, we sit here in the evening and just look out and go, wow, isn't this great? We get to be here in this middle of the farm. This was our dream. And it turns out he had a dream to be out here. I had a dream to be out here. We didn't realize we were both going to be out here together at the same time, doing it together. The bottom line is, though, that he probably wouldn't have done it on his own, and I probably wouldn't have done it on my own. So together, by putting our energy together, we were able to focus and kind of do what we've done here, which is a truly diversified farm.